Hello again and welcome to Follow My Sailboat Building Project. My name is Panu and I'm building this 15-meter liveaboard cruising sailboat here in winterish Finland. And what you just saw was getting out the third frame from the table. And since that I have been already prepared the fourth one. And today I was planning to laminate that, but it is so annoyingly wet and humid today, and water is dripping down from the roof on the table. I'm not really sure if I should or can do this as planned. That's a little bit of a bummer because I was planning to get this video done, and today is just above zero, which would be great working temperature with the epoxy. I think the moisture is more important than the schedule at this time. But in this video, I'm planning to show you small things a little bit in more detail of laminating these frames. The overall thing you must be familiar with, and if you're not, check the videos up there. I have already done 3 of these frames and the procedure is quite well explained in those previous videos. In a nutshell, I will show you with this frame, which is pretty big. We have these plywood sheets on both sides that make the shape of the frame. They are cut with the CNC to exact shape to form the shape of the frame. And inside there's laminated strips of wood, and they make the actual structure inside there. And I laminate these on the table to make sure that they are in the right shape. And here you can see these mold pieces, probably at least to some extent, that are bolted into the table in the holes that are CNC cut to the table as well. So I get the exact measurements from there, and they should be really accurate. These are pretty heavy things to handle, like so. But yeah, not sure if I can do anything today. It is really annoying. This particular spot seems to be the place where the most of the condensated drops are falling from the roof. On that side there is really nothing, almost nothing. So I'm not sure if I should actually move this table on that side at some point. Yeah. But anyway, what I have underneath here is the mold for the 4th frame, and I think we'll take a look how I did that yesterday. Building the mold started with cleaning up these MDF boards that were cut with the CNC. The remaining tabs were easy to trim with this trimmer router, which is an excellent tool for jobs like this. After the lunch, it was time to clean up these plywood sheets a little bit. They were a bit damp and the router bit weren't excellent condition, so there is a bit of this debris remaining from that. And you can now see that I have already covered the table with some plastic sheeting. Every of these MDF molds consist of 2 parts, and they are going to top of each other, and first it of course is just to find the right places for everything. The moisture levels also made joining these plywood sheets a little bit tricky. They do deform just a little bit to make the joints really tight, although I have some tolerances cut into them. Then there was a little CNC mistake. This is the same part, but the other one is cut from the wrong side of the line, so it is 8 millimeters smaller. These MDF pieces aren't thick enough by themselves, so I need to put some spacer pieces between. I already did this with the last frame, so it works really great. Then there is these two small filler pieces that go in here. The hole for some reason wasn't deep enough, so I had to drill it through. When you're cutting with the CNC, the corners are always rounded because of the CNC bit, but this case it needs to be square, so it fits the piece properly here. And then of course all the molds needed to be covered with some packing tape to prevent the epoxy sticking to them. And when all the pieces have found their places, it's time to hammer the rods down through the table, and they kind of lock everything on their places. The table has 100 millimeters pattern of these holes, and all the molds are made to fit into that pattern. This filler piece just has one hole on it to hold it in place while the glue up. It doesn't go through the table at all. Then it was of course time to trim the ends of these slats. I used the CNC to cut the joints on them. This is the same program I have used many times already. It works very well. But as you can see, when I'm cutting these, there is some moisture in these slats, and this smoky thing is actually water vapor, just visible when it's cold like this. Perhaps the most fiddly process of this whole thing is to fit the slats in. I first marked the center and measured how long the whole slat pile should be, and then I started to fit the slats. In this case, I needed 3 full-length slats to form this one long piece, and I just wanted to make sure that the joints are not at the same spot, of course, so they vary a little bit. And after this marking, I just cut the rest of those slat ends with the CNC again. It's of course important to make the slat pile thick enough. After the whole pile was done, I moved to the filler piece, which is these little shorter strips that form the bottom part of the frame. I probably could use CNC cut massive wood pieces instead. It would make this a little bit faster. It was windy and snowy out, and some snow came through the door gaps inside. And finally, I just put all the pieces inside the heated box to dry them a little bit, because as you saw, everything was a little bit damp and the wood has swallowed a little bit, so I just wanted to make sure that they are dry when starting to glue up. It's now later afternoon and I took some time to finish this shelf behind me here to store some stuff in there. And I also started to clean up this third frame, which is pretty big, as you may see here. This is pretty good. The lamination quality seems to be good. There's a couple of small mistakes. On this side there is a couple of these slats over this plywood a little bit, and they haven't gone all the way through there, and there's a small void in the other side because of that. But I think the lamination itself inside is pretty good, so I will have to clean up and touch up that a little bit. But on the other hand, there should be actually one more slat here. So I made too much of them and I took 2 of them off, but I should have taken only 1. Now there's a bit of a shelf in here. I need to fill up that little bit later. But I think that's pretty easy to do when I clean up this first. So not a big deal. Otherwise it looks very, very good. It's too late for me to start the lamination for today, but I think I'll continue that next week. I just leave it underneath there and put some heat in there so the parts will be warm and dry when I start the lamination. Next week it should be around 0, maybe a little bit on the freezing side, so there should be no moist problems there. Now when the snow has all fallen down from the roof, there's no dripping anymore. But yeah. Cleaning up the frames with the trimmer router works great. So the laminated slat is the surface to trim to, and I just trim the remains of those mold plywood pieces. It makes them look much cleaner very quickly. Whoops. New try. Then I just trimmed out the excess part from the top of the frames. Good morning, it's now 3rd of January 2023. Happy New Year everyone. I'm glad that I didn't do the lamination last week. It was pretty damp. I didn't feel that well either, so the box has been now here for a few days with the heat on, so everything should be dry and nice inside there as well. It's like a -3 degrees Celsius. I should release this video today, not probably gonna do it, but I'm gonna laminate today the frame, and I'm just gonna film a few detailed spots and kind of tell you what's going on. You have seen all that before, so nothing really that much fancy new things there. But yeah, let's just dive in. Couple of more preparations included putting the nuts underneath the table and then trimming these joints a little bit. When the slats were a bit damp, the router bit didn't do excellent job on them, so there's a little bit of a kind of excess wood, and it took maybe 2 hours to clean up all this, but now the pile was complete. Then I marked the middles of the slats and drilled a hole through all the slats into that floor piece there. This is very important because it makes the slats stay on their places while doing the glue up. Time to mix the epoxy. I purchased this small power drill attachment, which works great. It also makes some air bubbles inside, and that's why the color changes a little bit. And of course the epoxy is a bit cold, so the bubbles kind of stay in there as well. But the temperature is around -4 degrees, so the working time of the epoxy is very, very long. It really doesn't cure in these temperatures. Then just applying the epoxy to the slats. This is a long and tedious job. The slats are quite long. This is one of the longest frames, and yeah, it took maybe 3 hours to do this job alone. All the voids in those slats needed to be filled, especially when I trimmed those joints between the slats, and I mixed some wood flour with epoxy and made this gooey stuff to do just that. And after a few hours, all the slats were in epoxy on both sides and all the joints were filled, and it was time to move on. I don't know if you can see it from the video, but the slat pile is pretty long. After the slats, the first job is to apply the epoxy to that floor piece and glue it down. I use quite a lot of this epoxy to make the wood really suck it in. And also the bottom side of the slats is important to add some epoxy there as well. There is some excess in between the slats, but I really want to put enough in there so that there is no dry spots or voids forming inside. When having the epoxy in there, the pile stays together pretty well. Then I dip the dowel in the epoxy and hammer it down into the middle, and it goes through all the slats and into that floor piece, and it holds the whole thing in the middle there, and it's quite easy actually to handle after that. And as I mentioned, this part I maybe could replace with massive wood piece. But for now I just do them from excess pieces of those slats remaining around. They're just filling the lower part of the frame. And before putting any clamps in there, I put the top plywood piece on there, and I put some epoxy onto that piece and onto those slats as well, to make sure that there is enough. and it fits right onto those rods and those wooden doubles. When CNC cut, all the holes fit perfectly, and that is really, really nice. Time to start the clamping. I just removed some excess plastic sheet here. It's pretty dirty already. And I started the clamping from the middle, which is pretty good idea. In the first one I really didn't this and it was quite difficult. Here I have noticed that it's important not to over tighten either before the other. So I just tighten them gently from front and from the top so that the slats go in perfectly and also the pressure from the top is enough. And you can probably see some squeeze out coming through from the slats already. That's a good sign. Then I just added more of these clamps on both sides and go from there. When doing this bottom part first, it kind of locks the whole thing on its place and the wing sections are pretty easy to handle afterwards. Here you can see also the small plywood piece between the slats and the clamps. They spread out the load a little bit and prevent the rods being drilled inside the slats. So now the whole bottom section is clamped down already. Then the procedure continues to the wing sections. They are pretty straightforward, just needed to bend the whole pile first, and it is surprisingly easy. There is really not that much force needed to bend all these slats, although there's maybe 15 or 16 of those in here. Then just more epoxy to the plywood and to the slats. Not sure if you can see it from the video, but the epoxy is pretty liquid on the cup, but when I pour it to that cold piece of plywood, it kind of sticks immediately there. So the temperature really affects the epoxy thickness. Whoops! The fast hardener works in -3 to 4 degrees Celsius. This stuck in the cup. There's 400 grams of epoxy. Now it's ruined. Shit. Now I have to make a new one. That's one hot cupcake. It's so hot you can touch it. Alrighty. Sorry about the light up there. It's now midnight. It took good 9 hours to do this. There was some issues with the epoxy. I accidentally left one batch in the cup for too long and it was with the fast hardener and it went bad. All right, you saw that already. Yeah, this is such a big job to do at one go. This is now almost the largest frame. And yeah, now I've been thinking that I just might have to chop the biggest frames into a couple of sections. They are too large, or then I need some people to help me with those. But yeah, this is now 4th frame done. Weather is quite nice. It's -4 degrees Celsius. Quite all right. The working time of the epoxy is really good. There is still very soft in here. These are the very first epoxies put on the frames there. Yeah. Oh, my back hurts. And now I think I'm going home, get some sleep and take it easy tomorrow. It's now Tuesday evening or early Wednesday, and on Saturday it should be below -20 degrees Celsius, so it's very cold. later this week, and I just put the box and the heater on and leave this for a few days. Then we'll see. Next week should be again a little bit warmer, so it might be possible to do the next frame then. All right, pretty substantial job, I have to say, and I think now it's all for now, and we'll see you in the next video, hopefully with another frame. Bye!